So we're 3 episodes deep into the second half of ReZero Season 2, and there is still no sign of a new opening or ending song being played whatsoever. But on top of all of that, I think we've actually had realized the opening song from the first half of Season 2 play more in the second half of Season 2 than it actually played in the first half of, Season 2, which is kind of hilarious to really think about. But regardless of that, though, once again, we have another 29-minute episode, and honestly, I know I keep saying it, but it's just still unbelievable to have it week after week. You see episodes this long. It's so unheard of. It's something that you do not see. You do not see an anime having this long of an episode. It makes me so giddy and happy to be able to know that this staff working on this, everyone working on this, wants to give as much time to the core content of ReZero as much as possible, and I greatly appreciate it. As someone that loves this series, I know I say it, but it really does need to be appreciated. It's just not something you see. Out of all my years of watching anime, I have never seen a studio and staff go so far as to have 29-minute episodes week after week for every individual episode. And this is not even counting the Season 1 stuff they did. If you remember from Season 1, there was multiple times that they would release an episode that was like 40-something minutes long, if you don't remember. It happened multiple times throughout Season 1. So it's just like, this studio, White Fox, and everyone working on it, they really do love this, and I just like, man, I'm so happy to be a ReZero fan and to see such a good anime adaptation. But okay, let's get into it. So there's a lot to talk about, a lot of things that's just getting me giddy as a fan. I'm excited to talk about because, like, there's so much to get into. Like, for instance, the whole unseen hand, invisible Providence from Subaru to Garfield's, overall character development, the interaction of Subaru besting Garfield, and then, the Subaru scene, the Amelia scene at the end, and getting to see Donna. We have the stuff going on with the little key scenes of the past and all that. There's a lot of things that were being done in this episode, and oh my god, what a good episode. Like, seriously, once again, another peak episode of ReZero, and once again, it concretes my opinion I made last week when I said that ReZero has officially become my favorite series of all time. And I definitely don't think I'm going to change that, because it just, every time I continue to watch the series, I see the scenes animated, my love grows stronger for the story, even though I know what's going to happen, and that's just crazy to think about. As someone that knows what is going to happen, my love just grows ever stronger for ReZero every time I see an episode released, just because of how good it is. And once again, another example of that. I think many that are watching this series understands. They understand my feelings of just how good these episodes are, and this episode in particular is extremely good as well. So I guess let's dive into Garfield. I think since he was a major point of this episode, I want to get into him, and then I'll get into all the Amelia stuff and the Subaru stuff that happened towards the end later on in this video. So Garfield, we all have known for a long time now, ever since Season 2 started, that he has been a brick wall for Subaru. He has been this obstacle that Subaru has had to overcome for a long time now. Garfield has been this physical entity that has kind of stopped Subaru from taking the trials and going around Amelia and, kind of getting everybody out of Sanctuary by himself, without Amelia's help. And we understand that is not the path, that was not the correct answer for Subaru to do. So in its own way, Garfield being an obstacle for Subaru this entire time was actually a good thing for Subaru to realize what is important in his life and realize how important Amelia is, but also that Amelia needs to be able to take risk and overcome these issues on her own sometimes, and people need to rely on her, believe in her and all that. And that's kind of what's been happening, is Amelia now has belief. People believe in her that she can accomplish this, face her past, and overcome it. It's an incredibly important theme of the second season of ReZero. Trust in others, believing in others, and that's happened for Subaru, believing in himself, believing in others, Otto believing in him, Garfield believing in himself, not giving up on himself, Amelia as well. There's been multiple scenes we've seen throughout Season 2 that's kind of implied this theme multiple times. And once again, it's very ironic that, once again, if it wasn't for Garfield, Subaru wouldn't be where he's at right now. Subaru wouldn't. So it's kind of even better. It makes this scene even better that Subaru is now lifting a hand, putting a hand out for Garfield to grab, for Garfield can actually move up the stairs and move forward in his life. And there's a lot of symbolic scenes with everything going on, with Garfield realizing his problems as, how he can't just sit here and give up. I like the segment with the stairs. So this is definitely something that was very noticeable while watching this episode. When it begins, you see Garfield at the bottom of the steps. He's completely on the bottom of the steps, and he's looking up at Amelia, he's looking up at Subaru, and they're on top of the steps. And kind of the way this is symbolized as they've already made their way up. They are further along their journey, and they have moved way beyond where they once were when they started Sanctuary, when Season 2 actually began. They're no longer the same individuals. And when they're looking back at Garfield, it can be kind of determined as if they're looking down at him. At least that's kind of how Garfield might view it in his own way, even if it wasn't directly stated. Him looking up at them might be like, oh, they think they're better than me. Oh, they are, this scary entity ahead. I don't want to be where they're at. I'm fearful. And when Amelia kind of just strikes at Garfield's like, you're fearful, you're scared, it kind of makes him realize everything. Everything he's seeing up on top of the stairs is actually, he's fearful, but he shouldn't really be. Why is he fearful? And he needs to be able to move forward. And so when you see Subaru walk down the stairs towards Garfield and they get on a level playing field, it goes back to that scene that happened in the previous episode of ReZero, with Subaru going into the tomb, talking with Amelia, and it's kind of like how I discussed it. He turned around on his journey to be able to help someone else out. Instead of rushing towards the exit, rushing towards the end, trying to get out and all that, and risking it all, putting himself up against a meat grinder, he decides to turn around, take a step back, relax, and talk with another individual and not rush towards the end. And that's exactly what happened once again. You have Subaru go down the stairs, go back technically on his journey to be able to get on the same playing field as Garfield and talk to him like, look, man, like, you're giving up. You don't want to actually move forward. You're just stuck in this time loop, and you haven't moved forward since you first visited this tomb and you saw the past of your mother. You have not wanted to move on with your life. And it's a great moment just to show, once again, that message and theme of the opening song of Subaru running towards the light, and then, how he's just trying to mad dash towards it. But then we see in the previous episode, in this episode, how Subaru turns around to mad dash for that light to be able to make sure he helps others along the way, for he can pull them with him, and they also are individuals that actually mature and develop, and they don't get left behind in their sadness and anxiety, etc. It's great. It's overall a really great message, and I love the symbolic nature of the staircase. But, okay, let's actually get into it. So, the reason why Garfield was actually like he was, why he was this obstacle, is because he was fearful of the outside. Anything that wasn't associated with Sanctuary, anything that wasn't within the boundaries of Sanctuary, he was fearful of. And for good reason. We gotta really take a moment to look at everything that was revealed to us. Garfield, at a very young age, he lost his mother. His mother wasn't around, and his father wasn't around as well. And he had a sister that watched over him, but she left to go on her own journey to be able to make way for the time when people in Sanctuary can actually go out in the world, which was revealed a while back ago. So we do know for a fact that the sister has been there, but she has tried to make way for the one day Sanctuary will be open, for it would be a safe and wonderful place outside. However, Garfield has been locked inside a Sanctuary, not because he can't leave, but because he just doesn't want to. He doesn't want to leave, Sanctuary, because he's fearful that his earliest memory he has of the past, especially when he went to the tomb to take the trial of the past, is he saw his mother leave him and then wind up dying, which is incredibly important, basically. What this lets us know is that the first memory he has is a memory of how scary the outside world can be. So you gotta imagine a kid of such a young age, like the age of 5, 4, whatever, witnessing something like that, witnessing, your mother, but leaving you, and then she actually dies as soon as her journey begins. And so she didn't get to find that happiness. Like her will of potentially leaving everyone behind for her own gain, her own happiness, that's what Garfield felt it was like. She died right at the start, so she didn't even get to achieve what she wanted. All the things she did to potentially leave her children behind, it was worthless because she just straight up died. And so Garfield didn't know how to feel about that. He was fearful because it's like, soon as his mother left, she died. That's the only thing he really knows of the outside, and so he didn't want to leave. He just wanted to stay stuck in place because he didn't want to confirm it as well. If he was to go outside, probably his mother is also dead. So there's a lot to really consider and think about. As a kid at a young age, being able to experience thoughts and memories like that so vividly, obviously you would not want to move from that spot. And it would make a lot of sense why Subaru had to be the one to really slap some sense back into him and make him realize what he's kind of been doing, because Subaru comes from a very similar perspective. And once again, the best way to understand somebody is if you've kind of been through the exact same circumstances, and Subaru's been through a lot. We all know this. He has been through a lot of experiences that no normal individual should be able to go through, but he has regardless, and he has managed to pick himself back up again, not just because of his own willpower, but because of others helping him along the way. And one of the recent times that's happened, especially with the scene with Otto, or the witches picking him back up and helping him out. And we get to see that he remembers these key moments of, individuals helping him when he's down and out. Rem, Amelia, Otto, the witches, all helping him when he's down and he doesn't know what to do. And he knows now what he needs to do. He needs to be able to help Garfield pick himself back up, because it's like, look, just because you're down doesn't mean that it's wrong for you to want to change. It's wrong for you to want to do something else. You don't need to sit here and just suffer. You can do something. You can get up and be someone. And it seems very basic and something so easy to express, but it's a lot harder to really kind of express those feelings to an individual when they're going through a lot of grief. And Subaru, since he has been, around so much problems, so much grief, he knows how it feels. And this is also a nice callback to how Subaru is not actually losing his humanity. This is kind of like a nod to the last part of the first half of Season 2, where Otto confronted Subaru and was like, Subaru, you don't seem to really care about Amelia. She's going through all these problems, she's worried, she's scared, she's crying in her bed, but you don't seem to really be upset or worried. You're just going from one moment to the next, and you don't really seem to be caring whatsoever, and that's incredibly important. It showed that Subaru was so detached from reality. He was so detached from individuals around him because he was just trying to achieve the goal of getting out of this loop, not dying or not everyone else dying. He didn't care about anything going on around him. He had no emotion for anyone around him whatsoever. But this scene with, Subaru walking down the stairs and confronting Garfield, it shows he does have emotion. He does have attachment to those around him. He's not slinging it away. So he is learning his lesson. He's learned his lesson, and he is not becoming Roswell or Donna. He really is holding on to his humanity and knows very precious to him. It's a very thorny and difficult path, but he is still going down it, and he's trying his best. So it's incredible to actually see that development carrying over from the first half of Season 2. So, diving a little bit deeper, it's very interesting as well that Garfield, he actually is only 14 years old. That's a big little detail. I think that's going to catch everyone off guard, but it actually makes a whole lot of sense now that you know it, because his interactions with all of the characters throughout Season 2, he has been very immature and childish. He's had moments of maturity, yes, but he has been mostly very childish. His emotions, everything about him, he's very immature. He's very impulsive, and clearly finding out that he's actually of age 14, it's like, this all makes sense now. Everything that he has done, everything that he has said, his reactions to things, everything makes so much more sense now because of what age he is. But on top of that, it explains his attachment to Ram, why he has this little crush on her. It's because it's his first crush. He doesn't really know how to express it properly, and it's very cute. There's a lot to really assess from Garfield's age being known now, and it's even funnier when Subaru realizes, like, wait a minute, he's that young, and, like, he's been giving me this much problems. Like, he literally almost killed all of us. He did kill all of us in another loop, and you're telling me he's only 14? I love that scene. It's absolutely hilarious to really think about, which, by the way, continuing on with Garfield, I do like that despite everything, when he got beat and all that, finally beat, he actually woke up, and had a lap pillow. He saw Ram, and then, she quickly pushed him off, but it was a great scene. Basically, she was encouraging him and like, look, you're an old friend of mine, and I want you to be able to move forward. I don't want you sitting here in place not doing anything, so get up there and prove to me right now that you're actually willing to make steps forward in trying to improve yourself as a person. it's really cool to see. I love how Ram was that final little shove for Garfield to actually change as a person. Even though it really was Subaru that kind of initiated it, Ram is the one that concluded it. Her final shove to him to make him walk those stairs and be able to look at that trial and overcome it. And him getting closure is one of the most beautiful things. It's nice to see him join actually the cast as kind of like a friendly ally instead of an enemy. And it's not like anything that's kind of left field as well, because when you really think about it, you know, Garfield has helped Subaru in previous loops. Like, for instance, when Satala appeared, you know, the Witch of Envy, and you saw how the world was being consumed by darkness, Garfield did pitch in and try to help out Subaru. So we know he's not necessarily unfriendly entirely. He's always had different showcases of his personality. He's been very, like, you know, mean when it came to trying to leave Sanctuary, but overall, he is a kind and caring fellow. And it's clear as day when you actually see this episode. It's beautiful. So let's get into some more details. So there's a very minor but very important scene that I need to kind of talk about / clarify. There's a scene where Subaru stabs a gem into Garfield's arm, which is what reduces Garfield down from his beast form into his normal form, and you kind of find out it was actually Puck that kind of did it. Obviously, Subaru was aware of it, but he makes a brief comment saying, like, oh, even when you're just in that and you're glowing, you still annoy me. So everything that Puck said in that moment, Subaru did not hear it, which is the reason why nobody else reacted to that. Like, for instance, Puck. For instance, why Amelia didn't react, because honestly, if Amelia would have known that Puck was in that crystal, she probably would have had some form of reaction, wondering, wait a minute, I thought you were gone, why are you in this crystal now? Are you contracted with, let's say, Subaru or whatever? You know, there'd be a lot of questions that form, but the big point of that, though, is to show is that Puck isn't actually gone. He's in some form of weird state right now, where it shows that he can't really do much at all, and he couldn't even properly even speak with Subaru, so I just wanted to clarify that brief little scene. Subaru, and how he actually defeated Garfield is probably something that I think everybody's going to be really shocked about. For one, the whole invisible hand, or invisible province, the correct term, or unseen hand. Now, FYI, I think everybody understood the scene, but if you didn't, I want to kind of break it down and explain it entirely. So, yes, it definitely is the unseen hand. It is the exact same ability that we saw Sloth use in the first season of ReZero. It is definitely the exact same hand. I know many might think that, oh, it's, you know, the hand that Sato uses to caress Subaru's heart, but that is actually not the hand. It's actually Sloth's. And the reason why it is because with the brief information you're given within this episode, it said the witch's factor that he got from Sloth is what activated this, and Echidna is the one that sped up that activation. Going back to the first half of Season 2, you have it to where Subaru drinks the tea from Echidna, and then something weird happens. You have it to where, like, he has a pain in his chest, and Echidna's like, oh, I'm just speeding up the progress of, you know, having the witch's factor simulate into your body. It happened very, very early on in Season 2, and this is kind of like a nod to that finally, after all this time, the witch's factor truly has activated, and Subaru can now use it. And so, how did he get this? That's probably what many are probably wondering. Well, obviously, upon killing Sloth, the witch's factor attached to Subaru. That's what happened, because at the beginning, you have it to where Subaru confronts Beatrice trying to ask for questions, and she's like, wait a minute, why did you kill Sloth if you didn't kill him for his witch's factor? Like, why would you do that? You know, and she was very curious about all of those little details, and Subaru really didn't understand what a witch's factor was at the time until finally this episode he kind of truly came to understand what it actually meant. So yeah, he does have unseen hand. Now clearly it doesn't look to be as powerful. It looks relatively weaker than the previous usage of unseen hand. When you look at how Sloth used it, he had many hands, like 10 different hands that popped out of him. He was a monstrosity in terms of strength. It was ridiculous in terms of what he was capable of. But when you look at Subaru, he's only able to actually use one hand. Now, this could be the case of because it's very early on and he's relatively new of using the ability. It might be because that's the only reason why he can only use one hand at this time. And maybe with time, he might be able to use multiple, but who really knows? The point, though, is yes, he does now have another ability besides Return by Death. He now has a whole other arsenal to deal with. Like, he can actually use an invisible fist to hit people. That's incredible. However, this ability does come at a cost. You can see briefly after he uses it and he hits Garfield, he buckles down, he hits the ground. You see he kind of like looks like he vomits a little bit, like he's under immense pain and pressure. You can just see by the way he looks that whatever, you know, Invisible Providence is, how he used it, it had a great weight to the usage of power. So it's definitely not something that Subaru probably can abuse continuously use left and right, because it'll have a lot of, I guess, feedback, you know, damage to his body, potentially. Speaking of damage to his body, that's another thing to talk about that some might not actually have understood. There is a brief little scene where Subaru uses Shamrock. He uses his iconic magic spell that engulfs the entire area in this dark mist, which results in those not really understanding, like, what's going on. For instance, it kind of removes their vision, their sight, their sense of feel, everything around them. They don't know where they're at. They think they're literally in a void. It's been a go-to usage spell for Subaru since the very beginning when he first learned it. He's used it constantly, and we gotta remember that earlier on in Season 1, Subaru damaged his gate. This was something that was very, very important when Felix told him multiple times, like, look, your gate is heavily damaged, you need to rest, you need to stay here. But obviously, Subaru was not able to actually stay and rest there because he had to deal with the White Well, he had to deal with Sloth. He wasn't able to really sit down and rest and kind of have his gate mend itself, recover. And so it's always been in a state of a very damaged state. And soon as Season 1 came to a close, instead of Subaru having, like, weeks to really rest, he straight up is thrown into another brutal life or death battle against Rosewall and, you know, Elsa at the mansion and Garfield and all that. So he hasn't really had time to fully recover his magic gate. Now, to kind of clarify what the gate is, if you have forgotten, because it's been a long time since it actually has been dived into, the gate is basically where all magic comes from for a certain individual. Every individual in the existence of ReZero has a gate. And if this gate is shattered, you will not be able to use magic. That is what happened. So basically, upon Subaru using Shamrock like he did, it broke his gate. So he no longer can use Shamrock or magic entirely. So that entire route of power is definitely broken. However, once again, many are wondering, wait a minute, so he used Unseen Hand, Invisible Providence after that. So how did he use it? Well, you could assume that whatever that is entirely different from the gate. Whatever is usage of the gate with magic and stuff, Unseen Hand is different. That's what you could assume from that. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify about the whole gate thing, because I know some might be confused about that. And so I just definitely want to take some time to clarify. So, let's get into the Amelia stuff. So, Amelia, at the end, she had probably one of the purest things she's done. She stood up to Donna and did a iconic Subaru pose, pointed her finger up, and basically it's like, I'm a pain in the butt and all that, and, you know, you're gonna have a lot of hard times dealing with me. And the way she acted was very much like Subaru. She was pretty much channeling her inner Subaru against Donna, and I really do like that scene, but it also does clarify a lot that happened in the first half of Season 2 when it came to Amelia going crazy. We know that Amelia went crazy. We all knew this. She went crazy because everybody left her, she was all alone, she was isolated, shoved into a corner, and so she kept throwing herself up against the trial left and right, taking it over and over to be able to beat the trials, but obviously it was impossible for her to beat the trials because she didn't have her true memories. They were sealed behind Puck's seal, so she wasn't really ever able to accomplish what she wanted. She couldn't actually beat the trial because she didn't even know what she was looking at. So when you see Donna act like she does, it's kind of clear as day that most likely every time that Amelia tried to take these trials, Donna would probably appear and just verbally constantly downplay her, talk bad about her soon as she appears in, her actual mind in the, the tomb. You have Donna literally putting her down continuously. And it kind of lets you know now that why Amelia became so broke is because she probably took the words that Donna said to heart. And it makes a lot of sense too, because when you think about it, Donna's entire purpose was technically also to force Subaru to take her hand. So what better way to do that than shoving Amelia into a corner where Subaru feels like he has nowhere to go but Ekidana. So Ekidana was manipulating Amelia behind the scenes and ruining her and messing with her and all those other loops, and Subaru was completely unaware of it entirely. But you can also see some of the anger that, Ekidana has at the end of this episode. She's angry for a variety of reasons. Firstly, because, Subaru, denied her. But second, because, Subaru literally ransacked her tomb. He went into her tomb and drew all over the walls on her grave to express his love for Amelia. So you got to imagine how Ekidana feels. Like, this man literally denied my hand, didn't take my hand, and I'm the first person he could talk to about return by death. But no, this man decides to come into my tomb, instead of talking to me, and draws all over the walls of my grave for another woman. You got to imagine how Ekidana feels about that. Anyone would be angry. I think anyone would be justified to be angry on that. But it's even funnier as well. When you look at it, she obviously seems very jealous that Subaru is with Amelia, for good reason as well. It's not necessarily for love. It's because you have it to where Ekidana wants to be very possessive of Subaru. She wants to have Subaru because Subaru offers so much limitless possibilities to what is possible because of return by death. Ekidana would be able to choose her goal. So she's very possessive and she wants Subaru, but obviously Subaru denied her and would not give her that attention that she wanted, and she's very jealous and upset that Subaru is directing all his love and feelings for Amelia, and she's acting like she does. She's just very, very angry about it. So it's just really good. I really, really love that interaction towards the end. It kind of clarifies a lot that happened throughout, season 2. So lastly, to get into the little detailed stuff, I want to talk about the Garfield scene at the end when he made Subaru get very embarrassed and start blushing. So to kind of clarify this one, when he's like, oh, I saw it, I apologize, but I saw it, and Subaru got very embarrassed. He's like, wait, what? I didn't know you would see it and all that. And the thing about that is that many might assume he saw the kiss. But that's actually not the case. What Garfield was talking about was the writing on the wall that Amelia saw. And the reason how he saw this is because when Garfield, took the trial that he did in this episode, he obviously was in the trial chamber. He was deep in the trial chamber, so he got to see all the writing on the wall that Subaru did. So that's what he said, like, oh, I saw what you did for Amelia and all that in there. He's like, I'm glad I lost you. It makes me very happy to know I lost to an individual like you just because of what you did for her. I really do appreciate that. So it's funny. So Garfield knows Subaru's little secret of what he did in the tomb of Ekidana, and Subaru's like, oh my god, you saw that, and got very embarrassed. It's a great little cute scene. And then also the Patra stuff, Patra coming in and finishing off Garfield. That's a great scene as well because it's kind of like a nice nod callback to when Garfield and her first encountered each other and she got completely just thrown onto the ground and wasn't able to do anything. Her getting that final blow as vengeance, it's perfect because she's technically Subaru's main, companion, because she is Pride itself too. Subaru's always been represented as Pride, and so when you really see how she just comes in and does the last hit, it's beautiful. It's a perfect way to kind of resolve everything when it comes to Garfield in that moment. So yeah, it's a fantastic episode of ReZero from start to finish. As always, it's great, and 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 episode. ReZero never misses. It never misses in terms of quality content, and I absolutely love talking about this series, and I'm so happy so many of you actually sitting down and listening to me ramble on about ReZero. It's nice. It's nice to see people want to talk about the series and all that. And actually, let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about this outcome with Garfield and everything in the comments below? I'm very curious. And with that, guys, I love you. You have a wonderful day or not, wherever you live. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.